And we decided, hey, what would the difference make at today's current rate with no savings on energy? And what would a difference be if they saved $100, $200, and $300 to truly quantify what the impact of what I believe is the biggest flaw in the mortgage industry? And that is, most of you guys have heard this term, the debt to income ratio.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Builder Innovator Summit Orlando. This is the very first session. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this whole thing is going to work. I'm your host. If you can believe it, I'm going to be your host here in this particular room all week. And today, we're really going to be talking about how new homes are built so much better. We have so much lower cost of ownership, but are we getting the value for it? Are we opening up new markets? How do we achieve that? So that's what we're going to talk about. We have a distinguished panel on just in just a minute. The structure track is pretty simple. We have 2 or 3 subject matter experts. And on this particular one, we got 3 up here. They're going to present and kind of set the stage. Sometimes we have a builder panelist that is up here for kind of commentary. We don't have one of those in this event. And then we've got about 5 to 10 minutes at the end where we'll just do Q&A with the audience if time allows. Sometimes the content runs a little tight. This is Sticks and Stones and Better Bones, new homes blow out used homes and cost of ownership. But this is a serious issue. We've been building better and better homes now for many years. We've got problems getting them appraised. We've got problems opening the market up and having people be able to afford them that should be able to afford them, but can't because of archaic mortgage rules. We have some problems. We even have problems just selling against used homes, making sure the consumers understand the value of what we put into these homes. This is our illustrious panel. Ed Hawk isn't with us. Ed had some surgery and just hadn't recovered enough in order to make it, so he sends his apologies. But Ken Geard down here at the left, he is the CEO and probably chairman also of the Leading Builders of America. I knew Ken for many years because I was the CEO of his kind of your sister organization with all those leading builders, the BDX and the Builder Homesite Incorporated. So he's got a really intimate and close look at what large builders are trying to do from a legislation perspective and influence on government policy perspective and just from a strategy perspective in the marketplace. And he'll be speaking with us today on all that. Travis Rulle, known for many years, Chief Operating Officer at FBC Mortgage, I think you are the largest mortgage provider for the new home industry. If you're not, that's a shame because you sure should be, shouldn't you?
We are.
Okay, good. Good deal. And they probably are the most innovative mortgage partner you can ever have. I know several years ago when I kind of first met you and a lot of your team, we would sit, Dennis, you came to a lot of those meetings and say, well, how come you can't this or how come you can't that? And what would happen is a month later, FBC could. Dennis Webb, I don't want to say how long we've known each other because...
A couple weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks, because otherwise we'll both seem old, I guess.
And we are.
But Dennis is Vice President of Fulton Homes. Fulton's the largest builder, private builder in Phoenix, Arizona. Extremely profitable, has an incredible reputation in the marketplace. What I love about Fulton Homes is Fulton Homes and their management all comes from the retail space, not from construction, not from law, not from finance, not from land. They're actually retailers, and they look at home building through a completely different lens. And he's going to set the stage for us. Dennis is going to be the first, actually, that's going to go through that. But we're going to queue up for our sponsor, Higharc, which sponsors all these sessions. They've got a little 2-minute video here to give you an introduction to their new product. So if you will, just pay attention and follow along.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Connor and I'm with Higharc. We're disappointed we can't be with you there in person at the Builder Innovator Summit. Apparently, John does not check to make sure there's not a Higharc retreat the same week as the summit. I'm going to have to work with him on that. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to check out the videos we'll be showing throughout the event. We hope they spark some new ideas about better ways that technology can help us design, sell, and build homes. Enjoy the conference, and we hope to connect with you soon. Thanks.
Home building, development, real estate, architecture, the built environment is actually very slow to adopt any sort of innovation.
I have to hire 2 to 4 different outside architecture firms to even keep up with the scale of our work. The coordination of having to make any change in a plan set is a true nightmare.
Higharc will solve a multitude of pain points kind of across the entirety of the development cycle.
When we saw the demo for Higharc, she went through, signed each room, and it became a house. The electrical went in, the lighting went in, and it was like, what? You can do that with a click of a button?
Getting to know the cost of what you're building, what you're designing real time, that's a huge innovation.
What Higharc is bringing to the table is what customers have been wanting. People want to see sort of instantaneously what is happening to the floor plans.
The 3D visualization instantly caught my attention. If someone would have showed that to me when I was building my home, I think I would have had butterfly eyes instantly.
Always having the newest version of a drawing set available to our construction partners. Higharc allows us to do that at a fraction of the time. If people aren't adopting technologies like this, they're going to get left in the dust.
So we're going to play at each one of our sessions, so they'll kind of show you different capabilities for Higharc, but it is a really interesting kind of AI-enabled, modern, cloud-based architecture and really records, as well as rendering and visual asset system that pulls all this together into a single system of record in a home builder. And, having been in the home building industry a long time, we've dealt with a lot of disparate systems that don't pull all this information together. I love the one comment, making one change in a plan series is a nightmare. And you know what that means. You got this plan series, you got 99 different ways to build it, and you're having to track all those down to make sure you've made all the changes. That's the kind of thing that Higharc really makes easy for us in this modern cloud-based world. I'm going to tee up this session with a couple of things. The National Association of Home Builder every year creates this chart, and this chart is pretty simple. It shows how many households in the United States, though that 21, for example, at the bottom is 21 million households, what home they can afford. So this is a chart from 2019, prior to COVID. So the production building market, about 36% of all the households in the United States could afford a production built home. That was about 45 million households. And you can see back in 2019, we said that, I can't quite read it from here, but it's, about $350,000 we said, or something like that, up to about 1 million. And beyond 1 million, we said back in 2019, that's probably getting into the custom range, starting to get in that range. So that very top part of the pyramid, really more of a custom market. But what it said way back in 2019 is about 58% of all the households in the United States, they're not even in our served market anymore. And that was a problem in 2019, right? We talked about it in 2019. We've worried about it all this time. I've updated this chart, and it's even more concerning. This is today's chart. And look at just the shape of the chart. Look at how that bottom layer that really can't afford anything, right, has gotten just gargantuan. Now, 70% of all the households in the United States can't afford a production home. And only 27% of the households can afford a production-built home. And the most interesting thing is between 2019 and 2025, which is, this is actually 2024 data, 2024, we'll call it, the population of the United States grew. But our available market went from 45 million households to 37 million households. We lost 8 million households that could even be considered in the market for production homes, even though the population of the United States increased. So this is a fundamental problem. And it's at the heart of one of the things that we're going to talk about today, because the way to solve this problem is we've got to deal with 3 issues. One, we got to make sure that our homes appraise for an appropriate price and we can actually sell them for a price that makes us a profit and consumers can get a loan on. That's obvious. 2, we need to increase the available market. If we're building better homes and they cost less to own, then people should be able to qualify for our homes that can't qualify for the similarly priced used home. So let me make it really, I think the number one issue on the table for us long-term as an industry is a $450,000 new home should be the same as buying a $350,000 used home. That the cost in total of carrying those 2 homes is the same. And we need the mortgage industry and the federal government and all the regulating bodies to start to recognize that, because if we can do that, we can then start to bring that green triangle down in that pyramid, and we can have a larger market that we serve, and that will serve all of the builders in our industry extremely well. The last issue is we've got to get really good at competing against used. This new versus used competition, we have to be able to very clearly articulate to consumers, and consumers have to understand that they would never really want to buy a used home. You know, think about it really straightforward. How many big box stores have you ever seen selling used home products? Our society places no value on that, except realtors. The moment you pile all that used crap on one lot, it's a new home. And that's how they market it. And they market it as a direct substitution to what a new home actually is. Now I'm going to turn this over to Dennis Webb, and he's going to take you through his view and a model of how we can get to this kind of holy grail of getting them appraised right, allowing more people to be able to qualify for our homes, and winning the battle against used.
We have a work cut out for us. And I think what we need to do as an industry is come together and identify these things and figure out how can we win this battle. This group actually came about last November in Pasadena. And Ken and John Galante and Travis and I and a couple other people talked about this very thing. But we kind of came up with some ideas on what can we do to really talk about these issues, and then kind of look at this whole situation and kind of come up with some solutions. So for years, high-performance home builders, and we consider ourselves a high-performance home builder, have argued that energy-efficient homes should be receiving higher values than those that are code-built or even older. So we have been for 20 years, we build all our houses to Energy Star. A couple years ago, we decided we need to go to the next level. And we started building all our houses to Indoor Air Plus, and then we started building our houses to WaterSense, and we'll talk about that later. And then we started building all our houses to Zero Energy Ready, which is the DOE, Department of Energy. They're still there, aren't they? Okay.
For the time being. Today, wait a minute.
Today,
let me check.
I hope so.
Now, do you air door test and do HERS ratings and all that kind of stuff on all of your homes?
Yes, 100%. We went to 100% testing last October. We were doing 1 out of 7. That wasn't quite good enough. We're finally making progress in getting those homes to appraise at higher values. And this is a recent determination that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac allowed higher appraisals for homes that are energy efficient as determined by the HERS ratings, which is the Home Energy Rating System rating, and it's produced by ResNet. So I was at the ResNet conference earlier this year in January. It was in Phoenix. And a lot of talk about this whole idea of green appraisals, okay? And I brought it back to Ken and John and Travis, and we all said, this is a good start. And we'll talk about that in a minute. This is a HERS rating sheet, okay? And this is done by our third-party inspector when they inspect all these houses. And they give, and this is through the Ecotrope computerized system for home energy ratings. And so in this case, this is one of our new homes, and it has a HERS rating of 38, which is pretty good. And the annual savings on this home is $3,400 a year.
Almost $300 a month.
Almost $300 a month, okay?
So Travis, you're in the mortgage business. What's $300 a month buy me?
A lot.
Right?
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can see there, it says the yearly cost is $2,000 that they're going to pay versus $5,400. It's $3,000 difference that they're going to pay less per year. That's a lot. Why wouldn't this house be of higher value than a house that isn't well built like this?
And why shouldn't my mortgage qualification ratios be different? Because I'm not going to have to spend as much money every single month forever.
Correct.
On things that go up. You know, this is the thing that kills me. The mortgage payment doesn't go up, right? Usually, right. I mean, if you have a fixed rate mortgage, right?
Fixed,
it's done.
Right. Yeah.
But my water rate goes up. My utility rates go up. All the things that you're saving here, it's $3,400 now, but in 5 years, that'll be $4,000. And in 10 years, it'll be $6,000. Right. So it's going to save me more and more money.
Well, and I think that everyone is agreeing that energy prices are only going to go up. Exactly. And the thing that's going to go up, there's a couple things that are going to go up tremendously. One is water, and the other is insurance. okay? And we have no idea with fires and all the things that we're doing. And then water is such a big deal. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we're taking these numbers and just kind of looking at today's numbers, not realizing, as Tim had indicated, these are going to be huge numbers in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Especially start looking at the demand for energy right now. You know, just this week, one of the CEOs, I think it was of Microsoft, came out and said he believes that within our lifetime, all the power generated in the United States could be consumed just by AI.
Yeah, amazing.
And how we're going to prepare for that, you know what's going to happen. There's going to be a market dislocation. Energy rates are going to go up a lot, right? And in these cases, homeowners are going to save a lot more money than those buying a used home.
Yep. So this, you might be, it's kind of hard to read, but this is a appraisal form. So all our new homes that have a loan get an appraisal. And it's a guy or a gal that decides, okay, I'm going to compare this home to another home that's nearby, and they're going to take things for like square footage and features like location and size and what everything is as far as comparing one home to another. Now, in this case, we have a HERS rating on this. This is the same house we looked at before. We have a HERS rating of 38, which is pretty good. These other ones had no HERS rating that we compared it to, because this is one of the first homes in a new community that closed. And we didn't have any other homes to compare it with because none of those had closed yet, okay? So we went nearby and we found, like a Taylor Morrison home and a Pulte home and guys like that. We couldn't find a D.R. Horton home, but we tried. So they compared it to homes with zero. So, and many homes don't get HERS ratings. So not all builders build homes with HERS ratings. They just kind of leave it off because they don't really want to pay for the inspection and the third party and this thing like that. And so many of the builders don't even build an Energy Star. In fact, most of the homes built in the United States don't even build an Energy Star.
And you think that's true even in the Phoenix market?
No.
You're so hot in Phoenix. We've got such huge air conditioning
So
bills.
Phoenix is the highest market by far for Energy Star homes. Almost 80% of the builders or the homes built in Phoenix are Energy Star.
And then what percentage you think has already gone to HERS rating and blower door testing of all homes?
In the United States, it's probably less than 20%.
How about Phoenix?
In Phoenix, it's probably 50. Yeah.
So you're kind of leading the way.
Well, we have been for years.
The heat.
The heat, it gets hot there. It just gets hot there. So in this case, we got a value of $50,000 higher, okay? Well, when you think about that, $50,000 higher than the next home, it's also a new home. Okay, they won't have repairs and everything like that. These are new homes. These are homes that are similar. They have roofs and things like that. We do spray foam insulation in all our homes, and so our value is unbelievable. The homes are very comfortable.
Tight.
They're tight, and in fact, they're so tight we have to pump in fresh air because the air is too tight.
You have ERVs on all your homes?
ERVs on all our homes, yeah. So we're really building the highest quality production home in Phoenix, and we're quite proud of that. So let's talk about insurance for a second. Insurance has risen 24% in the last 3 years, and it's only going to get worse.
I thought you were going to say 3 months.
Well, it might be.
Because it seems like
It
that.
seems like that, but it is 3 years. So why is the insurance the same cost for new homes versus used homes? This is something that Tim and I talked about last week, and we go, that doesn't make any sense. These are brand new homes. Why would the insurance be the same? Will future new home technology reduce monstrous increases? I would hope so. Some areas will simply not be able to obtain insurance. And we're seeing that in California, and we're seeing it in other parts of the country where it's going to be very, very difficult. This is amazing. Dollars from water damage to homes is larger than fire. And we'll talk about that in just a sec. Insurance companies offer discounts to water leak detection programs. So we put in this product from Moen called Flow, and it's a water leak detection system. And all the insurance companies say it'll save insurance. And the whole option is like $450, and that's for 30 years. So it's incredibly cheap. You know, you buy one for $450. One leak could cost a homeowner hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I've been advocating for a long time, Ken. This is something that you and your organization really could be center stage. The industry needs to create their own insurance system where you only insure new homes, and you only insure new homes if the builder's building to a specific spec. I got that idea because we were doing a project for the large builders once, and we were working with USAA. And we got into this whole issue of if we did this, couldn't we this? You know, if we did this, couldn't we that? And we worked with them, and we were getting nowhere, and I couldn't figure it out. And finally, I don't understand. You know, our homes are going to have this, we'll have this, we'll have this. Can't we have? They says, there's no claims on new homes.
They need the new homes.
We need the new homes to subsidize the used homes.
Exactly.
And it was like, well, wait a minute. That's an opportunity to create just a new home insurance company, right? And that you could then have substantially lower premiums, which would then lower the cost of new home ownership even more, opening up more market for us, right? So that we can solve some of this affordability and market access issues. So it seems like there's a real opportunity, but it will take some collaboration.
So I said we were doing zero energy ready homes. This is the DOE thing. If you're building a new home with zero energy ready homes, your utility bills will be a fraction of those built to code, and even better than used houses. Homes under the zero energy ready program are the most efficient in the country. More and more builders have made a decision to elevate their construction to a higher level. And we're seeing now for the first time ever, national builders going to this level. It's really encouraging. It's not just the local guys anymore.
Does zero ready require you to pre-wire for solar?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't have to put solar on.
No.
But it's got to be able, I can put solar on and instantly just tie it in. And
So the requirements for zero energy ready, and what we had to do, we were already building, before zero energy, we were already building Indoor Air Plus and WaterSense and Energy Star. So those were already prerequisites that we had already taken care of. So the only thing we really had to do is we had to put the ducts in conditioned spaces, and that required spray foam, and that was the biggest.
And you moved the spray foam to the roof from the ceiling.
Correct.
Yep. And you just enclosed that whole.
Enclosed the capsulized, right? And then we also did the walls. So the walls are spray foam as well. And then we have to do the pre-plumb for the solar, and we had to do the ERV plug for Tesla. That was pretty much it. I mean, we were already building the home pretty good, so it really wasn't that big of a deal for us to move to there.
Right.
As part of the 45L tax program, when we went to zero energy ready homes, Congress passed the IRA amendment, a year ago now, a little over a year ago, and it made it so we would get a rebate or a tax rebate for zero energy ready homes for an additional $2,500 on top of the $2,500 we got for Energy Star. So we're currently getting $5,000 a home.
By the time you get that, it seems like you're not spending hardly anything.
And that was my big argument to our ownership and things like that, that, you know, hey, guys were crazy not doing this. You know. And plus we're giving ourselves a tremendous advantage over the other guys. Water is becoming the most scarce resources available. Low flow and restricted use plumbing systems are now the norm. You used to say, well, gosh, I can save all this money. Well, Kohler doesn't even make a faucet that doesn't have, water restriction on it. 90% of water usage occurs outside the home, so it's in the property, not in the home. And sometimes we forget that. Builders can help their buyers save dollars by implementing WaterSense. So WaterSense, it's a federal program, EPA, they're still around. So plant material, no turf lawns, and water sensors reduce water usage. And can HOAs reduce their water usage with better planning? And so one of the reasons we're able to become WaterSense is we develop all our own properties, and so we control the HOA, and we're able to say, okay, these are the things you got to put in your house. You can't put turf in the front yard. You can do it in your backyard. You have plant materials that are they're drought resistant, and you have just better planning, and you have sensors that restrict the sprinkler usage and things like that. So it just kind of makes sense to do it that way. So here's a total cost of ownership. This is a new homes 38 with WaterSense versus used houses, okay? And so your mortgage payment is the same. Okay. Taxes are the same. Insurance is down a little bit because you might have a water system. Utilities is the big difference. So you've got 100 versus 300. Water goes down because of that. HOA stays the same. Miscellaneous trash, sewer is about the same. But the difference is 3,600 versus 3,880. Now, the other thing I did put in here is, what about repairs? If you have a used house, you probably have another $300 or $400 a month in repairs. I wish I had $300 or $400 a month. That would be a bargain, you know?
That is a good point, though. The repair, you know, it's another thing that our industry, you really think about it, we have a terrible warranty. You can buy a car with a 5-year bumper-to-bumper warranty, a car.
Our appliances have a better warranty than our houses.
Right. But why wouldn't we as an industry say, you know what, every new home comes with a 5-year door-to-door warranty?
Sam Raskin says lifetime warranty.
Yeah, well, but at least 5 years.
So
right?
how about lifetime?
You know?
What's going to break? So here's your monthly payment. Used houses is a total of $3,880. You can see all those things there. And then here's your monthly payments in new homes of $3,600, much less. So question, so we receive higher value for appraisals than we are now. How can that translate into be able to qualify for a larger mortgage? And that's, Travis will get into that. And how can interest rates be adjusted for a high performance home? And that's the other thing we talked about. We didn't even talk about interest rates, we just talked about appraisal. And then what can we do to raise awareness of these important issues? So that's my story.
That's awesome. All right, Travis.
Bob.
Can you solve all these problems by the end of the conference? That's what I want to know.
We can talk about them. We can solve most of them. However, you all bring us some really good points. This topic is moving faster in the finance mortgage space, but I don't think it's happening fast enough. And so the appraisals that Dennis talked about, we do this, and we're one of the first lenders to actually do this process and accept these appraisals. So Freddie Mac is very, very clear on and very prescriptive on what appraisers are allowed to make from an adjustment perspective on energy efficient homes. And not to go back over the HERS rating certificate, but it is required to get this type of adjustment. Freddie says that the appraiser must use a HERS index rating score and just the value based on that score and a couple different calculations. What's challenging, I think, for the industry, and when you think of just credit issuance, you know, from whether it's from a securitization perspective, Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie, is they have to tie it to a certain standard. Dennis is absolutely right. When you looked at the payment comparison of all the different elements to reduce the cost of ownership from a new versus old, but where the agencies, Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie Mae, which includes FHA, VA, USD, if you're not familiar, where they struggle with is how do I standardize that? And I think Freddie is the leader, Freddie Mac is a leader on that because they said, hey, look, rather than a gold star rating, which is basically pass or fail, let's move towards this HERS score, which is far more accurate, far more detailed, certified by a professional, and it takes into account all the things that Dennis described into one rating and gives us a savings. Let's pin our nose there and use that for our calculation.
And you said Freddie's already done that?
Freddie and Fannie, but Freddie's far more prescriptive, which is unique because the FHFA governs or oversees their policies, and they're generally yoked in most cases. There's nuances between the two when you look at the seller guides, but Freddie is by far the most detailed. And so,
can I interrupt with one?
Yes, go for it.
The reason the HERS rating is so important is because appraisers, when we talked about this 10, 15 years ago, they would say, I have no idea what's behind the wall. I can't see behind the wall. You're putting me in a terrible position to trust you to say this has better insulation or better windows or a higher air conditioner. So the HERS raters actually do a physical test of the home. In a new home space, they come in pre-drywall and look at the insulation, and then they do a physical test of the home to measure the leakage and the duct leakage and blower door test afterwards. So it's something that gives the appraiser a piece of paper to say an expert came up with that number. I just didn't pull out of thin air.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's really hard for them to do that, and this gives them that clarity and that objective measuring stick to say, yep, this house performs compared to everything else. It's funny, we actually, I think, used the same appraisal because Dennis and I worked on one.
He's just a copycat.
Yeah, but it's funny. We've noticed. I just did a case study for a home builder in Kentucky. We took a few appraisals of theirs. They built a fairly energy efficient home, maybe not a HERS score of 38, but slightly above it, and the value increased by about $8,000, $9,000 compared to the appraisal that was just performed 6 months ago, where this wasn't contemplated. Which is a big deal to the builder, and so you think of how does this resonate with the buyer? Well, I'm saving money on my home, but then from a builder who's making the investment to build a home to a slightly higher code, they're able to support a higher value and recoup some of the investment of making the home more energy efficient.
And some of that increased value you get actually is unique in your market because it depends on what you're comparing against. If you're in a market with a lot of old housing stock,
Yeah,
right, then these efficient homes are way better
stand out.
and worth substantially more.
That's right.
If you're building in Phoenix, in some cases, a fairly young housing market, so you're competing against other relatively recently built homes as well, the gap may be less. But in a lot of markets, you're competing in 1950s and 60s and 70s, construction, which is horrifically, inefficient compared to what we build today.
That's right. Yeah, it's been a game changer. It's been probably, I've been in this business for a really long time, and this topic, and I'm happy to have it with anyone in here when it comes to mortgages, it has been probably one of the hottest topics in the last 6 months. I have talked to several executive levels, leaders within builders, and this has been really exciting. This evolution towards accepting this. Now, to my point I made a few moments ago, the clarity of these other organizations needs to be a little bit clearer, and why that's we've operationalized this for conventional loans, and it really works for home builders that are selling to predominantly Fannie, Freddie Mac, or they're making more of a conventional loan. Where there's some challenges is FHA, VA, USDA are silent. They don't say they won't do it, but they're silent. They acknowledge energy efficiency in their own way, but they're silent. And from a lender's seat, this, as you guys can remember, I'm sure some of you remember post-2008, one of the biggest issues in the mortgage industry, which created a lot of repurchase risk, was appraised values, right? There was not a standard in how homes were appraised. And I personally oversaw a desk that handled the repurchase demands that came from Fannie, Freddie, and FHA, VA in past life. And we fought thousands of them. And it was a really, really big deal. And so lenders are cautious to move in this direction. We know it's the right move. They're cautious, and so we've made that jump when Freddie's very clear on what they'll allow, and we've operationalized that, and we're able to give that value back to the builder and to the consumer because, to your point, it truly is a savings,
right, versus
just some other feature. It is a big difference in their utility bills. One other really big problem is what Tim mentioned is we have an affordability issue, and we see this every single day. I know you all do as well in your fields. The ability for borrowers to buy and borrow at this interest rate level is incredibly immense. It is a very, very high mark to climb over for a lot of home builders. And so what we did is we did an analysis on about 31,000 potential buyers that have walked through the doors, and our team has actually reviewed their underwriting income over the last 2 years. And we decided, hey, what would the difference make at today's current rate with no savings on energy? And what would a difference be if they saved $100, $200, and $300 to truly quantify what the impact of what I believe is the biggest flaw in the mortgage industry? And that is, most of you guys have heard this term, the debt to income ratio. And so a long time ago, I tried to research when this was created, and I couldn't find it, even with AI. A long time ago, actuators that write credit policy decided that there's a formula for what a borrower can withstand from a credit capacity perspective. And as you all know, there's a front-end debt-to-income ratio and there's a back-end debt-to-income ratio. Your front end includes all things house related, all things debt related towards your house, and your back end is your entire debt picture. And as you know, that between whatever the agency might be, that cap is around 50% on your total debt to income ratio, maybe in some cases up to maybe 55. Well, that debt to income ratio includes your mortgage, installment debt, revolving debt, And that's pretty much it.
But not operating cost.
That's right. So it's the other 50 or 45%, the rest of the debt to income equation that no one talks about, that these actuators figured out, oh, that must be for taxes. That's for food. That's for utilities. That's for everything else that you encounter in life. So take it back to the mortgage. If I refinanced anyone's home in here, or I did a loan for you, and we were going through the qualification process, and I said, hey, look, for you to qualify, I need you to pay off this credit card, $100 a month or $200 a month. And you said, okay, Travis, I will go pay that credit card off, and we now qualify. From an originations perspective, I would check the box, and we would prove at closing that that was paid off and is now a zero balance. I would give you dollar for dollar savings on that credit card payment to your debt to income ratio to qualify you for a mortgage.
Even though the next month I could run that credit card up to $500 and be in worse shape.
Bingo. And so that's where there's a flaw. And it's in a lot of cases, it's not even required to even close the credit card. It's just to show that it's a zero balance. And so there's a flaw there. So why would the industry give a dollar for dollar credit to a debt to income ratio for qualification purposes when we pay off a credit card or something to that effect, but not give that same dollar for dollar value when we can actually objectively measure the amount of money that the consumer will save on a monthly basis on utilities, that other 45, 50% that's not spoken about in our guidelines. And so I bring this up, and I think this is, and we got some great data here, I'm gonna show you in a second, because I want everyone in this room to think about it. You all, I'm sure, are active within your own states or know people that work for your company. They're active, at the policy level, but we've got to bring this issue to light within our industry, because there are people out there that can qualify for a mortgage and buy a new energy efficient home. And that's a benefit to you, right? Because now you're separating yourself, to Tim's point, from a new versus a used home sale, right? You're saying, hey, you can't qualify for the used because it's not energy efficient, but come over here, take a look at this payment, and because of this new rule, we can get you in this house,
right,
this brand new home.
Yeah,
and you're making the difference of homeownership or not.
I look at it as income encumbrance.
Yeah.
You buy something, and yeah, you got a mortgage payment, blah, 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 but you've also encumbered other income. Meaning, I buy this house, therefore I'm now gonna have to pay taxes, and I'm gonna have to pay utilities, I'm gonna have to pay water, and I'm gonna have to pay my HOA fee, so that encumbered income is different. And because it's different, the ratio should be different.
That's right.
Yeah, that's really the issue.
So let's quantify it. So 63% of Americans, this is a data study, we double validated just 2 nights ago. At current market rate, as of last Thursday, Freddie Mac publishes what's called the primary mortgage market survey rate every Thursday at 2:00 p.m. And that is a survey of all lenders across the industry. So if you ever want to know what lenders are giving out for a rate, go there, you'll see it. It's a survey of hundreds and hundreds of lenders. And 63% of Americans qualify on a debt to income basis at that current rate. Now, we all know that most of you in this room are using tools like Forward Commitment. We have an incredible Forward Commitment product. We'd love to talk to you about it. It is helping homes move tremendously. If you're not using it, you're missing out. But 63% of Americans without that assistance, that lower rate, can't qualify at current interest rates based on debt to income alone. Now, that does not account for maybe other issues, maybe on credit or other attributes of the loan. This is purely just their verified income to what their thresholds are, and they're not able to afford that. Now, we take another layer deep and we say, okay, well, let's talk about the people who don't own homes right now that would love to get into homes. 46 million Americans rent per year per the U.S. Census report. So we took 31,000 customers with validated income, the average purchase price around $450,000. And we built a simulator that said, hey, how many of these people, whether they got a loan or not, not accounting for what rate we actually offered them, because again, a lot of home builders, we work with 134 home builders nationwide. A lot of our home builders are using forward commitments and other strategies to lower that interest rate to move their buyer pool up a little bit. But taking out whatever rate the customer actually got, whether they paid for it or the builder paid for it, and just said, what's their true income versus the rate? We were able to calculate, if we were to drop $100 in savings off their debt to income, how many more people would qualify? So for every $100 saved, 3.77% of more people qualify. You move it up to $300, that's 11.46%. So basically, an additional 1 out of every 10 US home buyers in that $455,000 price point, if this were to change at the seller guide level, would qualify for a home compared to where they're at today. Just think about that.
Well, you think about it, we saw the example of $300 a month. That would be about 5 million extra people able to buy a home. We had talked about that there were only 37 million households in the United States. So you're talking about almost 15% increase in market size.
Right.
That's pretty substantial.
And you're doing it without lowering FICO scores or anything like that. You just the way to calculate their debt.
It's just using it towards that age-old debt-to-income ratio and using the same argument. And so you might think, well, this is interesting. How can I advance this argument locally where I live? Again, use the refi scenario. If you haven't done it or you haven't paid off a debt to qualify, you probably know someone that has. It's the same idea, just with energy efficiency. And most everyone in this room, whether you're building almost a net zero home like Dennis is, or you're building just a home at a higher standard, your HER score is likely much better than a used home.
Here's the other thing I think it would do. If this was out there and it was clear that everybody understood this, says, oh, well, I can afford a $400,000 new home, but I can't afford a $400,000 used home. I have to buy a $350,000 used home because that's all I qualify for. They would suddenly start to go, well, that's because used homes are shitty.
Right.
Right. They said, well, yeah, used homes come with all these bills and they're going to go up, which means now we start to actually win the real battle, which is the new versus used and why they should really want a new home. So you do things. You physically increase the size of your market, but you win the hearts and souls of the buyers.
Right.
And the combination of those two would bode really well for our industry.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and the good thing about these, unless you literally leave your AC on and run your pool pump or whatever feature you have and just run it into the ground, it is literally a fixed savings almost monthly outside of maybe some seasonal adjustments. So it's remarkable that it's not contemplated at the high level.
Fantastic. All right, Ken, you're going to bring it home.
Yeah, so these guys did such a great job of going through all this that I'm going to skip a few of these slides.
Yeah, but since you live in Washington and your job, right, is to represent the industry, we're just going to pass all these to you.
Here you go.
And we just I'll write
by design,
the
by the way.
down and we'll just pass the book down.
That's right.
Yeah. How's that?
So these are companies I represent. I am an advocate for the large production builders in Washington and in state capitals. We talk to policymakers about these types of issues all the time. We continue to do so. So let me just put this in perspective today. This is not news to anybody in this room, but supply shortfalls continue. Why is all this important, right? Why are we putting our time and effort into this? And I think if you look at demographics, overall demand is very positive. People want to buy homes, but affordability makes it difficult for them to do so. Rates are where they are. No relief there. So we see underlying demand being high, but actionable demand, as we call it, is very low. And it's slowed materially over the last few months where people who want to buy a home just can't. It's the rate's too high and the cost of the home is too high. And down payment continues to be one of the single biggest obstacles. That's important because everything they were just explaining, really, if it doesn't appraise and if the energy efficient features don't appraise and that extra investment that you put in, if it doesn't come out in the appraisal, well, then one of two things has to happen. The builder has to eat it or the buyer needs a bigger down payment. And neither one of those things in this market is favorable. So, right now we're seeing, rates have pushed buyers beyond their affordability limits. They're on the sidelines, they're waiting. And I think some of the noise and distraction that we're seeing on tariffs and everything else has made this worse. Their consumer confidence is shook a little bit. People are worried about their jobs. And this spring selling season, I think, has been a little cooler than we would have liked. And it's increasingly difficult for builders to pass along cost increases. So we're seeing builders reduce margins to sort of eat some of that, but also building fewer spec homes and really optimizing cash flow, just keeping the business running, but not having homes sit out there that are finished homes that are not, it costs a lot of money to have a home sitting out there for weeks. It's not sold. So builders are moving those homes quicker than they otherwise would just a few months ago. And again, so new versus you, we're sort of back to the beginning here where we started. But between energy efficiency and the systems of the home the roof, the HVAC, appliances, plumbing, electrical. These things are pretty solid over the first 10 years if everything goes well. You're not looking to replace any of those things in the first 10 years. Most people move after 7. So it's a pretty good deal to your point, Tim, that we ought to be getting more credit for this in the marketplace as opposed to those who buy an existing home or used home. Also more resilient. We've come a long way in building science over the last few years with respect to wildfires or hurricanes or climate events. And we've seen there was a picture that came out of Fort Myers when the hurricane came through a couple years ago now, and the community was just devastated. But there were new homes, kind of $300,000 homes, small. They weren't custom homes, and all the homes survived except for a little bit of the landscaping. They all survived. Everything around it, the 30, 40, 50-year-old homes were gone. So we're seeing and putting a lot more time into building science, nail patterns of roofs, things that seem like they wouldn't make a difference, but they make a huge difference from an insurance standpoint. So we are definitely a lower insurance risk, and we are working on this with the insurance industry to give us some recognition of that, because they tell us the same thing they told Tim, that they like new homes because there's no risk there in the first 10 years, and they need to subsidize the other homes. But there needs to be a way to get it beyond some of those regulatory hurdles. Sort of practically, they're cleaner. Houses are cleaner. They have new carpet. They're dust-free. There's no prior pets, no moisture issues. None of the bad habits of the prior owner are there. So it's a better value proposition. And if they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, there's a picture for you. There's the people on the left of the old house. They had the dog, and the new people moved in, and they have a baby. So sorry for the graphic picture there, but I thought I think I stole this from you years ago.
We had a whole bunch of things.
You did
like
something
that.
like this, and it really shows why you want new. So we've talked about some of the energy efficiency costs. I won't go through that again, but again, right now we look at principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and we really need to add energy to that so we can, on the underwriting process, gets a better picture. And it's really a blind spot in the industry, as Travis talked about. And it really makes for a better credit risk. So
I love the idea, though, of adding this whole issue of repair and maintenance, and just taking a look at like the top, let's say, 6 key subsystems of a home: roof, water heater, HVAC. You know what costs money, and you know what wears out in a home. Like I said, is your 2x4 and your structure going to wear? That's not good. But we do know roofs wear out. We do know water heaters wear out. We do know you got appliances. And that way, even if you did a major remodel, you could get credit for all that, right? Oh, it's got a new roof, and it's got a new water heater, and it's got all new appliances, and it got a new HVAC. That's fine, right? They have redone all of those systems. But it seems like we should add to this a line there, because if we can get $300 out of the kind of encumbered income that raises 5 million, increases our market by 5 million more buyers, I'll bet we could get another $300
on repair
out of the repair and maintenance, which gives us that's 10 million more people that could end up buying new homes. So I think we need to keep working this model and add this kind of repair piece to it, because it doesn't seem that hard. An appraiser could very easily take a look at your home and go, yeah, you got new. Okay, you're in Class A. Your repair costs, your likely repair bill will be low.
And we're talking only about incremental costs. So when builders build, the bare bones home, there's a water heater in it, there's a roof on it, there's an air conditioning system in it. So we're only talking about the cost of taking it from, sort of average to really efficient. So you're adding a few $100s here and maybe $1,000 there, but for $5,000 to $7,000, something like that, you can really transform a base home to a very energy efficiency home quickly and save that, $100, $200, $300 a month. So we've been trying to talk to policymakers about this for a while. I think Travis is right. The mortgage industry was a little skittish because they were coming out of 2008 and they were a little afraid of new regulations. But and I think the insurance industry also was slow to come to the table. But now with all the risks that seem to be getting worse every year, we're getting them to the table. And I'll say that I think together we need to continue to be having these conversations about highlighting new versus used. One of my larger members always says to me, I don't compete against everybody else in your association. I compete against used homes in every market I'm in, because I have a better value proposition than them. And I think that's true for most builders that are building, because we're building with you're getting brand new. You're not getting someone else's used home. So,
We're outsold 5-1 in every market in the United States. There's 5 used homes sold for every 1 new homes.
the good news is we're getting there. The good news is that the mortgage industry is coming around. The insurance industry is coming around. I think it's up to us in the industry, builders, to start telling that story with a little more precision, a little more concisely, like really showing the stark difference in the money savings and the quality that's out there ready to be had.
All right.
It's much easier to sell that today than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It really is.
Some of it has to do with the fact that we actually have, like you said, CURS. We have quantitative tools
We have the facts.
that are third party
Yeah.
that mortgage institutions can actually rely on versus somebody saying, I built a great house, you should give me a better
Trust
deal.
me.
Right. I mean, that's,
and I think you probably, Dennis, you probably can confirm this, but when you talk to owners of these homes, they acknowledge that they're saving money, but it's also, wow, this house is much more comfortable than my old house. I don't have any drafts. Everything's nice. I don't have any temperature changes. Like above the garage, it's the same as my bedroom. It's the same as the den. It's a more comfortable home to live in.
And it's healthier.
Yeah, it's healthier.
we've got time for probably just a couple quick questions. I'm going to start off the first one here while you guys write something down and think of something to ask these guys. What can a builder do? Because my guess is the builders out there going, yeah, this makes sense. I get it. What can they do to help? So I'm a builder. I'm building in Peoria, Illinois. I build a couple hundred homes a year. This is all great, but what can I do?
Well, I think a builder needs to build a better house and then make sure you get a green appraisal. No, we started this green appraisal thing. We started in January. One of the first calls I made was Travis, and he's all over this, He goes, okay, well, I have this.
I already told you, he's the most responsive
it's
mortgage guy in the business.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So he gets this thing, he goes, well, the whole world has it, and I did it in a day. What took you so long, But we were on our path to become, and because half these builders didn't even know what a green appraisal was. So there's 400,000 appraisers in the United States. Only 3% of them are green appraisals. So we know this guy that runs this appraisal academy, and he teaches people how to appraise. Mm-hmm. And then we have this whole thing, and it was a giant learning curve for me to get. We have 3 preferred lenders. Travis jumped on it just like that. He's the leader. The other ones are falling behind because they didn't get it. Right. So you've got to make sure your lender understands that whole idea.
So one, build a better home.
Yeah.
Go for green appraisals. Find lenders that get it.
Get a HERS rating. It's what, $300-400, something like that.
Yep.
Well, but you're going to get it anyway.
Yeah.
All right. At least a couple questions from the audience. Saw a hand go up. Okay, there's a hand back there. The question was, Ken represents all these incredible builders, large builders. Are any of them actually building a better home, and how do they prove that they're doing it? Now, I'm going to speak for you right away. I know Alan Merrill has committed, right, to 100% across the board nationwide for Beazer Homes, right? That's one of your, right?
Correct. They're 100% zero energy ready. So we have a group that meets once a month called the National Quality Council. It's the head building science people in all those companies. And they get together and they talk about building science and how to build a better home, more resilient, more energy efficient, better quality. So that they're I think at that level of production builders, they view themselves more and more. This probably wasn't so when I started doing this 10 or 15 years ago, but today they view themselves much more process oriented and as a manufacturer. There's manufacturing a home on a job site rather than manufacturing a product in a plant. So yes, I think they are. I can tell you there's a lot of time and effort that goes into it. Most of those builders, I think all the builders I represent build some Energy Star homes, probably 4 or 5 or 100% Energy Star. Only one right now is 100% zero energy ready, but the rest are considering it because of the 45L tax credit helps them offset that upfront cost. The upfront cost is the thing that really is the problem. It's the bottleneck. The upfront cost of those energy efficient features, the new innovative products that we see here from a lot of the innovators at this conference happen to be the most expensive because they're new. And as the price comes down over time, they become more affordable to go into a home. But the upfront, solving for that upfront cost, who's going to pay it, is critical to getting those products to scale so we can get them in the homes. So,
all right, we've got time for one more question at least. So the question is, what's the typical cost for a third party to do a HERS rating?
Like the builder cost is about $300, $300 to $400, and if you do a volume, it's probably a little less.
That was so quick. One more. Anybody? Oh, over here. You bet. The question is there any worry about those tax credits going away? And you would probably know this best with all the stuff that's going on, in Washington.
Huge worry about the Energy Star program going away and about the Zero Energy Ready program going away. They're all subject to DOGE, so we never know. We don't know. There is a pretty widespread lobbying effort that I'm a part of to sort of go in and explain the value of those programs to builders and to buyers. And then on the tax credit side, yeah, the tax reform is a huge issue I could talk about for 3 hours, but just in a nutshell, they're looking to extend the tax cuts and to add the additional tax cuts that they want. They need trillions of dollars. So they'll be looking under every rock. Every existing tax credit is in jeopardy. So we're trying to defend.
Answer your question though, back to all of this, advocate, right? This is real savings, and the number one problem in the United States is affordability, right? And so this is one pathway of many to solving a macro problem. So
don't be silent. Find your voice. Use your voice.
Find your voice. Local politicians, etc. Just speak up.
All right. And gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for participating. Fantastic content. Great experts. Love being with you. And hope you'll come back with me again at the next conference.
Tim, thank you. Thank you. Well done.